Well, the Palm Pre has been officially released, and I saw it the other day. The very first thing I thought when I saw it was, wow, because of how small the darn thing is. This is the iPod Touch, and from base to top, the Pre comes to about there. And the reason it does that is because there's no extra real estate here on the top or the bottom of the screen, with the exception of this lower half that houses the home key. The screen literally comes practically to all edges. So the Pre is definitely smaller than the iPod Touch and iPhone. It goes without saying that obviously the device is a little bit thicker because of the fact that the screen can slide up, and then there's your QWERTY keyboard. And about that QWERTY keyboard, it is cramped. I am not going to lie to you. It is cramped, and unfortunately this was a dummy. That's one of the reasons why this is a hardware look in the first place. I had no access to the software whatsoever. This was a dummy of the device, and the keyboard was cramped, and one of the negatives about not having access to the software was I wasn't able to see if there was a landscape keyboard that I could use in place of it. If there is, I'll more than likely use it. The device is very round compared to the more squarish shape of the iPod Touch and iPhone. The Pre is definitely a more rounded device. In fact, it felt better in the hand than the iPod did. So what else is there to say? It definitely is a nice looking device. I will certainly say that. And I like it a lot, but until I can see the software and actually play with it myself, final judgments on the overall device will have to remain unchanged. However, the good news is that for those of you who are on Verizon, like myself, we will be getting the Pre early next year. There's a 6-month exclusivity to Sprint, but Linux for devices, LinuxForDevices, all one word, linuxfordevices.com. They have confirmed that the Pre will be available on Verizon as soon as the exclusivity with Sprint wears off. But that has been confirmed. It will be on Verizon. Now, why would Linux devices, the Linux Devices website, host anything about the Palm Pre? It is a Linux-based device, and that is actually where I get into the comments, particularly in relation to the iPhone. Now, the iPhone is trying to make things easy. They're trying to make things secure. They're trying to make things consistent. And they want everything. Apple wants everything to be as easy as the Mac. The only way to do that, unfortunately, is to lock you in some circumstances. They're also trying to get the baby boomer generation onto smartphones, and I do think that it is working considering the iPhone numbers have jumped. But, we do have some issues. Biggest one of which, you are limited as to what you can put on your device. Pardon me just for a moment, I have to plug in my Mac. You are limited as to what you can put on the device because Apple has to approve it. Now, this is a plus because there's no way malicious software can get on there. But in a way, it's a negative because if Apple doesn't feel it's decent enough, then they won't allow it. Now, lots of applications. There are over 50,000 applications available. And, you know, that's great. But then there are some applications that Apple will allow and others that won't. There was a controversy, actually, that I believe it was on the news. Something about this application called Baby Shaker or whatever it is. And then you've got an application that essentially is Oh, to heck with it. It's called iBoobs, or at least that's what people are saying. I don't think that's the technical name, but people are referring to it as such. When I did a search, I was just looking around just for, various stuff, and that came up. And that could definitely be objectionable to younger audiences, and definitely the Baby Shaker. But here's the thing. They took down the Baby Shake, but they kept the iBoobs thing. Now that, I think, was a main controversy. In other words, they're allowing some apps that might be controversial and not allowing others. And I'm not sure why that's happening. But with a Linux-based device such as the Palm Pre, you wouldn't have that. And I can understand why Apple wants to keep the things in check. They want to keep things safe. But I can guarantee you a lot of the younger people are much more technically savvy, and they want something that gives you a little bit more opportunity to tinker. And the Palm Pre is that device, if we can get the developer support. Now, a lot of people are jailbreaking their iPhones and iPod Touches. This is a good thing because it allows for more customization, themes, the ability to hide icons. I actually saw a jailbreaking video before I recorded this video, and it actually showed you that you get access to the BSD repositories. Now, BSD is based... Now, I think it's based... It's on distrowatch.com, and I believe it's a form of Linux, though I can't remember... Though I'm not 100% sure, because a lot of people say BSD and Linux are not the same, but that's beside the point. The point is that you get access to the BSD repositories, open source repositories that anybody can work with. Now, that's the good part. The bad part is that there is some talk about, while jailbreaking in itself might not be illegal, there are some practices that might be considered illegal, for example, using copyrighted content to jailbreak. There's also the possibility of your iPhone becoming incredibly unstable. I have not ventured into the jailbroken world, and I'm going to be right up honest with you. Part of me wants to do that, especially since earlier today I actually went to Apple's website, entered my iPod serial number. The device is out of warranty, it's not eligible for phone support, and it is not eligible for extended warranty. So, if I were to jailbreak it and send it in, it would be out of warranty anyway. But, again, I guess I'm just nervous about the whole thing. Not just the legalities, but also if something were to happen, if an unknown app came onto my iPod and boom, something stopped working. If I were to restore it, would it go from the iTunes to the iPod or iPod to iTunes? In the sense that, would I have all my music back or just a blank slate? Understand that I've never had to restore an iPod before. I'm just new to this. But by opening up the iPhone to third-party development, Apple has made great strides, but I think they should loosen the reins a little bit. By having the Palm Pre based on Linux, the reins have already been loosened, because Linux is a completely open environment. Anybody can do anything with it. Thus, you can have anybody program for what you want, and you don't have to worry about approval from Palm. At least I don't think you do. Maybe they'll go Apple's route. I don't know. They don't have the software development kit out yet. But given the fact that it's Linux based, anybody can go ahead and develop for it. Android is another example of a Linux based device that is truly open. Anybody can develop for that. I think that Apple is meaning well. They're trying to stop the jailbreaking because of the issues that might involve. But in the end, I guess in a way it goes both ways. I'm for it because of the customizability and the freedom, but I'm against it due to the possible legalities and the possible glitches. And also, I want to upgrade to software 3.0 because of the accessibility on board. For those of you who are not familiar, please see my video, iPhone 3G Speaks. But that's pretty much it, my take on the Palm Pre, and comments regarding the iPhone App Store and Linux and whatnot. So, thank you for watching, comments are welcome, and have a nice day.